Okey-doke.
Good to go? Okay, it's 7:05 by my computer clock. Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021. I'd like to call the regular council meeting to order. We'll go ahead and recognize the visitors that we have if they wish to be recognized. Good. Dean, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
I'm Dean Brown with Correct Equipment.
Good, Jess. You want to be recognized? Jess Silhan is here as well.
You can only go incognito for so many more meetings.
Yeah, that is true. Okay. Additions to agenda. I have one right off the top just because I made a mistake and spaced Dean's presentation. Water meter presentation will go on there. And then do we have any other additions?
Only addition I would request, unless it's going to be spoken later, is the P&W, the email you sent out, or the request from Miss Sherry.
We can tackle that. I didn't plan on it, but we can tackle that under the Fall Fest update
Yeah,
stuff.
an update of where it's going is all.
Sure.
If you planned on that, I'll withdraw that.
Okay. Okay. Any questions
I
on?
turned the furnace down because
Okay,
we might be at risk of the furnace making too much background noise.
that's fine.
For the microphone.
Questions, concerns on bills? Guess we can go through the paid bills first. You guys want to go document by document?
Yes.
Okay.
They're pretty much all paid in-house.
I don't have any questions due to Justin's questions and Jerry's answers.
Okay. Thanks for all the memos in there, Jerry. That
Yep.
helps clear things up. Appreciate that. David, do you have any questions, comments?
No, I don't.
Okay. I would ask for a motion to approve the bills as read.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Steven, seconded by David. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 3-0. Thanks, guys. September 8th meeting minutes. Any questions or concerns there?
Nitpicky point. Just curious why Denise was underlined and isn't it Colleen, not Colleen's?
Pauling.
Yeah.
Or singular.
What's the correct spelling there, David? It was underlined due to edit, and then that just didn't get removed, but is it spelled correctly?
Holling.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
Well, the edits then too, under committee updates, the last thing, it looks like track changes is still on, so there's a period in here that's red.
Oh, yeah.
If you're just cleaning that stuff up then.
Yeah. Okay. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, it's been motioned by Steven, seconded by David. Any more discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion passes 3-0. Thank you guys.
I'd just like to interject with the bills and with the meeting minutes. I felt that what was sent out incorporated a lot of feedback from the previous meetings. So I wanted to give Jerry some kudos for that. I thank you. It was helpful for me to process more of that, and so I just wanted to recognize that. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to, I'm gonna let Dean take off on his presentation, get him, that way if you would like to leave, you're certainly welcome to. So with that, I will let Dean have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. Just to start, I'm going to give a little introduction on myself, a little bit of introduction on meters, and kind of. So I'm with Correct Equipment. I've worked for them for about 7 years. Been in the industry. I've worked for another company for about 10 years doing, and really, we don't just do meters. We really kind of specialize in, we do a lot of chlorination stuff. It doesn't matter if it's liquid, water systems with chlorination, instrumentation, flow, level, valves, telemetry. So we really do a lot of different things. And Correct Equipment's been around for about 20 years. Howard Todd, the owner. But 3 years ago, we actually were approached by Camstrup, a meter manufacturer, and they were looking for a distributor. And it really wasn't something we were looking for. But after talking to Camstrup a little bit, we thought, hey, this is a good fit for us, because meters today are not just a mechanical meter that's in the pit. They open every month they have to go and open that pit and look down there and read that meter. That technology has advanced drastically in the past 20 years. In the last 5 years, even it's accelerated even in the past couple of years, which we'll even discuss some new stuff that's even just come out in the last couple of years. But so it kind of fit into with what we do, and we had some concerns. Camstrup, we weren't really meter guys, and Camstrup really wasn't a company that had a presence in the U.S. Actually. They entered the U.S. about 8 years ago, distribution out of Atlanta, and really the Northwest was kind of their last area that they actually hired a distributor in. But Camstrup, their statement to us was, you bring a really good technology, and there's always a place. I'm going to take off this mask so I can talk a little better. There's always a place for good technology in the industry. And over the past 3 years, we went from just a couple installations in our territory to well over 60 installations, and that will probably even double within the next year. We have a great product, but really, we're going to talk a little bit about Camstrup, but really the points I kind of want to hone in on is why the new technology, and what's the benefit to Harrington, to you guys as Harrington. So first of all, there's a couple things here, and sorry, Jess, you can't see the slide here, I'm just going to kind of reference a couple things here. Smart meters, Camstrup only makes smart meters. When we say smart meters, we're ultrasonic read. It uses technology that bounces sound wave back, and it measures that and the low flow. Ultrasonic measurement technology, high accuracy. We're going to talk a little bit about that here in a minute. And then AMR, AMI, and ALD solutions. Acronyms, probably don't have a clue what those are, right? And we're just going to talk, but we're going to talk about, it's really what that is some options that you guys have. It's kind of a basic, a step up, and then, a premium product. And just kind of, I just want to kind of go through some stuff here, and I really kind of want to open up for a discussion to you guys, and just, we can fire away and just talk about some stuff. So I'm just going to kind of fire through a little bit here at the first, just to kind of go through a couple things here. So I'm going to. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so one of the points that I want to make here tonight is that meter accuracy is very important. Because that meter is what you guys bill off of, and having an accurate meter is very important for that. Camstrup has the measure, our meter measures the lowest flow in the industry of any meter right now. Our 5/8 3/4 measures down to a 0.015 gallons a minute. I've got a little demo out there. It's getting dark now, you probably won't be able to see it, but we can measure literally down to just a real steady drip. The old technology, well, my slide. Oh, there. Okay, old technology is a mechanical meter. That mechanical meter can actually only measure down to about a quarter of a gallon. And really, if you look at a flow chart with a mechanical meter, their flow chart starts at a 0.1. We actually go down to a 0.015 gallons. So there's actually a lot of lost flow. Most mechanical meters, after they've been in the ground just a little while, they literally, as soon as they're installed, they start to degrade. And after 10 to 12 years, that degradation slope is very steep. And they actually recommend replacing meters every 10 to 12 years. Have you guys replaced meters every 10 to 12 years?
No, not on a consistent basis, no.
No. In the most small towns, we find that, they've got meters in the ground that have been there 30, 40, 50 years. Yeah, they're still registering, but it comes back to that accuracy. So I've got a little chart here that you can't see very well. But the first thing we're going to talk about is low flow. So low flow, and this meter catches that low flow. Well, there's a lot of water that flows through a meter that isn't through a mechanical meter that isn't registered. And we know that by putting in a low flow meter that'll catch that low flow, we typically see anywhere from 5% to 15% increase in billing by putting in that meter. So the first point is, just by putting in this meter, you guys are going to increase revenue from the fact that the customer now pays for all water that goes through the meter, not just because they're even going to pay for that low flow, but even that accuracy. And I think we see a lot of that, not just that low flow, but my guess is you guys probably have meters that have been in the ground for more than 30 or 40 years. And a lot of those meters can be off by 10, 20, 30, 40%. So there's a lot of, so this graph here actually shows, we installed meters for Deschutes Valley, and I can send this information for you guys to see too. But we installed meters to Deschutes Valley a year ago during the summertime. And Deschutes Valley has about 4,500 connections. They installed meters, and then our sales guy, Tim, that covers Oregon, he followed up with them last spring because he was doing a presentation at a conference, and just wanted to know what their feedback was. And the general manager there sent back a really nice email that stated, hey, they sent this. This is literally out of the email that they sent over, that shows a 10% increase in revenue from the over the previous year, and so they've seen a 10% growth in billables. But then also they saved $130,000 in efficiencies by not. They went with our AMI system, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But nobody has to go out and read it; transmits direct, and so they didn't have to send guys out. Just not having to do the manual reads, just the efficiency of it. They were able to save $130,000 a year. Well, 4,500 connections. You guys are, I don't know exactly, 263. So a little bit smaller. So but we would expect to see on that side of stuff. Hey, not the same scale, not the same scale. But so the other point is just the efficiencies of reading those meters and the dollars. So smart meters. Just I don't want to get into technology very much, but the meter is really a 20-year meter. The battery is a 20-year life. It's got a 10 full warranty, 10 to 20 years, a prorated electronic. It's all electronic. To actually read a meter is very simple. And we're talking about, so we're going to talk about AMR first of all. So that was the first acronym, automated reading system. So it's automated reading. AMR is referring to being able to do a drive-by. And so my tablet's warming up here. I'll just talk for here a second. So in these meters, this AMR meter, we can do a simple drive-by and pick up those reads. They go right into, they'll load onto the tablet and go right into, but it not only picks up that read on the meter, but these meters are smart meters. This meter actually stores 1.5 years of daily reads, 3 years of monthly reads, and then the last 50 info codes. Info codes are detects a leak. So if this meter sees continuous flow for 24 hours continuous, it's going to give us a leak code. Burst code, a half an hour of 20% of max flow of this meter, it's going to give us a burst. Reverse flow, this meter only goes in a positive direction. If somebody turns that meter around and tries to fill their swimming pool or something, this meter won't register. In fact, we can actually put a logger on here and data log that, and we can actually, there's an internal register, we can see how much water was actually reverse flowed through this meter.
Does that happen quite a bit?
Well, I mean, in the old meters, mechanical meters, you turn it around and it takes off, it takes it off, but I don't, it's probably not a real big issue. I don't know.
We're still talking about a meter that's in the ground.
Yeah.
Right? Someone would be digging a hole and turning it around in the ground.
Well, I mean, it's in a meter, it's in a pit and everything. I mean, customer could go in there. It's
Well, all
probably,
they have to do is divert the line.
yeah.
Wouldn't necessarily have-
Probably happens more in federal way than other areas.
Yeah, maybe so. But so the main thing is that you can get an actual that information is stored in there. You can log that. You can log that meter and pull that information off of there. But when you do a drive-by read, we don't get all the daily reads. We don't get the only information that we're going to get off that meter is we get the read at the time of the read, but we also get a first and a last of the month read. So you could actually bill first and last month, the first and the last month instead of just off the day that you read the meter.
You can read them 24/7, 7 days a week, 12 months of the year. It doesn't.
Yeah, and you can read them as many times as you want. We'll just go through it, and I think this will answer a few questions.
Inclement weather won't affect.
No. In fact, yeah, winter. We were just talking about winter a little while ago. That snow adds a little bit of a barrier, but not much of a barrier. So to go read meters, what we do is that's the Reedy app. Log in. So this is Camstrup. Reedy Manager is theirs. So to actually go read meters, what I'm going to do is hit read meters. I should have Jerry do this. Okay. Here you go, Jerry. I'm going to have you read meters. Okay. So hit read. Oh. So hit read meters. And there we go. And I'm going to have to help him here a little bit because I have Harrington. Yep. Okay. And then hit start. Okay. And it's going to say, oh, it might even be, okay, so it's, well, I'm going to take it back. I'm sorry, Jerry. So it's trying to find me right now. So that sound that's making, it's actually reading meters. So it has, I dummied some meters in here from the town of Harrington, so I just put meters in here. So I've got meters sitting here. So if you see those icons right there, the blue icon, and then there's an orange one, So there was 5 icons on there when originally, and now it showed we've read 3 meters there. And those meters are in this room. And so really what they do is your operator, they grab this converter. This converter converts the 915 radio signal coming off there to a Bluetooth signal we paired that with this. They go by and do those reads on the meters. They go by, and so we've got a couple of blue dots that are still on there. They drive back down the street or whatever, but and once all the icons are gone, the actual orange icon means it's a meter that hasn't been read before. I put a dummy meter in there just so we could do it, so we could see it. Let's just say we finished reading meters, hit finish, we've read all the meters, hit OK. Now I can hit send and receive, and that'll send it all to the cloud. But I'm going to go to this info codes right here. So what is that? We got 3 info codes. We read 3 meters. What does that say on that? What's that code? It says dry.
Dry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a dry code. Well, yeah, all these meters are dry. So if it was a leak, we would have got a leak code. If it was a burst or whatever, so we can get all those codes. The cool thing.
It's supposed to say dry, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to say dry.
Okay.
So if we had water in it, we wouldn't get a code on these ones. But so the most important code really is going to be a leak code, because that's something we can go talk to the customer and say, hey, you've got a leak in your house. Whether we know it's somewhere between the meter and your faucet, and it's probably something you need to fix. I did the town of McKenna over kind of by Tacoma, Fort Lewis area, JBLM. And the first time I went and read meters the first time with them, they only have 250 connections. We had about 10% of the homes listed a leak. They had a young guy that was there, and so he just went through and read every Friday. He went through and read meters, knocked on the door, and said, "Hey, you got a leak." And within about 3 months, they don't get any more leak codes anymore. So it really helped their customer with that. So just that's so then I'm going to pop back to. So we come back to here, and I hit send and receive on there. All that information goes into the cloud, clears out the tablet. That now is in Reedy Manager. And so in Reedy Manager, there's the desktop version of that, which your billing clerk would have access to. And so all that information we just sent is in Reedy Manager, cloud-based software. And so then when it comes time to do billing, Jerry would grab that. There's an export file in Reedy Manager. He exports that file, imports it into Bias, and it just populates that. He sends out bills. So the point is that from reading the meter to going to do a drive-by read into the cloud, into Reedy Manager, into your billing system, seamless system with no manual enters, no having to manually enter meter information. When your guys come and do reads now, and they write it down. Do you ever have to send them back out to do rereads?
If there's time, yeah.
Yeah. So it's real typical. Most utilities, when they go through and read meters, it's real easy to get a number wrong or something, and so this eliminates the rereads. So just the whole efficiency of the whole process cuts down on time spent on that stuff.
Does anything interfere with it? I mean, like, if they're located behind the resident, how close do you have to be for the sake of pick it up?
Good question. So most of the time, as long as we're within about 100 feet, we're good. It's a radio signal, so depth of the pit, what the pit cover is. Also, Jess was saying that his meter's in his house. I have a little bit of concern with that, but metal lids, if we're not picking up a read, there's a couple things we can do. We can put on a polymer lid on the box, because metal's going to inhibit that. If we're still not getting the read, we have a little antenna extension that can go on that meter, and so that brings it up to the surface where we shouldn't have a problem. But I've done a lot of systems where we have metal lids. I just did the town of Index. It was 130 connections, and all their meters were in their cast iron lids. It's a small town, 130 connections. So they installed all the meters. I went and read them with them the first time, and we were reading meters a block or two out. So we are kind of going slow because we were walking, but every one of the meters, we picked up every one of the meters. And so there is things we can do. In Jess's case, if we happen to not be able to read that meter that's under his house, there is an antenna that we can mount exterior some way that we'd be able to pick up that read. I've had a couple of pits that have been really deep that were a little bit hard.
I know the city of Spokane,
Ours, well, the reading's
for the last 20
outside.
years.
I think that's
They have
common,
the
is it
metal
not?
I
manholes.
don't know if it's in the basement.
Way down there, they have a
Your house is
little,
unique.
looks like a little traffic counter or whatever, it's
Susie.
white with a little black dot on it. It's sticking on top, and that must be the antenna then.
So that's on their meter boxes.
No, on the manhole
Oh,
cover.
they're probably doing some kind of. They're probably monitoring with some kind of. There's a lot of devices out there that
They
do
said it was
radio
They said it was for reading them,
of
so-
meters.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, it probably is.
Something like that. It's probably-
Yeah, and and yeah, a lot of. So yeah, just I'm gonna go back to the sales side of stuff. Camstrap, a little bit about our product. Everything's under the glass. The battery's not interchangeable or anything. It's a 20-year, and there's no antenna on this one, and it's all in there. And so we have a little extension that if you need that antenna, but it's all under the glass in here, and it's sealed, so that's. We don't have an external antenna. Most everybody else has. They have a meter. In fact, they have a meter with a wire that goes to their radio. We put it all under the glass, and it's good because it's all compact. And if something goes wrong, we don't have to troubleshoot. Is it the radio? Is it the wire? Or is it the meter? If something goes wrong, it's in the meter. It does limit us though, because other people can take that meter and run that wire to a different radio. We have City of Moscow uses Camstrap meters, but they use Itron radios. So it does. We have an encoded meter, but this is with that encoded meter, they're using somebody else's software, and really get the best benefit out of our product with our meter is using Camstrap software. That's the sales side of this, but I really kind of want to keep it a little bit more broad into just what the benefit is to Harrington. I got just a couple more things here, and then I think I already kind of covered that. Okay, so we talked a little bit about AMR. So the system I was just talking about, this drive-by read, automated reading, meter reading. So that's drive-by. AMI is we have infrastructure, and so this meter right here is a dual radio meter. So it's got this is a little bit of Camstrap technology, but we've got a 915 frequency radio that you can do drive-by read, but we have a 450 frequency that you would put in a collector. And so you'd put a collector, it's more or less a receiver, and it goes on top of typically your tank, because it's going to be your reservoir, because it's going to be the highest place in town typically. And meters broadcast our meter broadcasts a signal every 3 hours, hourly reads. And so nobody has to go by and do drive-by reads. It's all instantaneously. Jerry would have access. If somebody had a leak, you would know within a few hours of that leak code being triggered, it would notify. A lot of larger cities are really going to AMI because they want that instant gratification.
That's AMI?
Yeah, AMI, yes. So typically and it's really, that's for some. A lot of times it's for somebody that wants more information. They're going to analyze more information. They want that notification stuff, and so that's AMI. So the next step we're going to talk about is ALD, and I didn't even have a ALD meter with me, but it looks really similar to this meter, only the antenna is right here in the middle instead of on the side. This is and an ALD meter is something that's exclusive to Camstrap, and it's an acoustic leak detection meter. So that acoustic leak detection, it uses those ultrasonic sensors that are in here, and it uses those that measures the flow, but also on a scheduled event, 26 times a day, it actually listens for leaks and listens for leak frequencies in your system. So we're catching leaks that we know that we got leaks going into the home, but we're also now we're able to listen for leaks in those service lines and actually in your main line. And so what they do is when they install the meters, they put all acoustic leak detection meters in. When they read those meters, and that can be done with a drive-by or an AMI fixed network, and it goes into that information, all that data goes into Reedy Manager, and there's a leak detection software package that you purchase as part of that, and it actually would highlight what meters are seeing a leak frequency, and typically you see 2 or 3 meters in an area that may hear that same leak, and then you go out and explore it. Some pretty cutting edge, just like I was saying, meter technology has really advanced. Camstrup released it about 3 years ago in Europe, and just really late last year. And we've got probably about 3 or 4 customers that have put in. And we've only had meters in for a couple months. We have a utility down in Portland area that they put them in, and as soon as they put them in, they had 3 meters that all in the same, right next to each other, were picking up a leak frequency. They went out and located the leak, and it was about a 30 gallon per minute leak. We have a video. I should have grabbed it, but it shows they dug it up and it's water spraying out of the pit. So a pretty cool technology on that stuff. Just kind of showing some of the technology. So AMR, kind of our basic, just simple drive-by read. AMI gives you a lot more information, a lot more instantaneous, and then for us is this new ALD. And really, water loss is such a big critical thing in today. Droughts, just population in California and Arizona. Water's such a precious commodity that anything we can do to save that water and reduce that water loss is really critical. So, but that's just
Question real quick.
yeah.
I may have missed it, but you have the ability to do all this stuff. Can Jerry say, can he shut off the water from his computer?
So Camstrup has not released a meter for the U.S. with the automatic shut-off to it. Other meter manufacturers have that, and Camstrup isn't going to jump on board with that at this point because their statement has been there's still a lot of legal concerns about that, and so I think Camstrup's. They spend a lot of money on R&D, and they have a shut-off valve that they use in Europe, but they're not going to They're not going to go forward with that at this point in the U.S.
I was just thinking maybe, for repair purposes, if somebody does ascertain they have a leak in their place, that, hey, shut it off for me and I'll go fix it. You still have to physically, maintenance have to go shut her off.
Yeah, and on the sales side of it, really. Not very often are they needing to shut off a meter from the office, and so I just it's expensive to do, and I think that there's better areas to spend those dollars on. But that kind of was so really. I just kind of really the points I kind of really just wanted to hit was just really the increase in revenue by using the meters that catch a low flow. The efficiency in just a simple drive-by read, which I actually think the AMR is all that you guys need. I will tell you that the town of Fairfield went out to bid, and they went AMI, so they must have got some funding from somewhere. We did win the bid, but I don't know if a town of 250 connections needs to be able to see a leak notification within a. It's nice, but I don't know. I think it was a little bit more than they actually needed to do. I have a couple other smaller towns that have really high water loss that are actually looking into our ALD meter because that makes sense. Let's cut down that water loss and what does it take? Do you guys know what your water loss is in your system?
100%.
Yeah.
I don't off the top of my head.
We don't have
we
any.
have a visual detection system, which
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to know. I think that might be something you guys have to report to Department of Health, right?
Yeah, we're supposed to track it by what our wells are putting out
what else?
and what we're
and what you actually sell.
Yeah.
And I know that the Department of Health wants that under 10%. I've worked with a lot of small towns that claim their water loss is less than 2 or 3%. Well, we already know that you're going to gain 5% by putting, I've got a town that says they're less than 3%, and they've got meters that are 30, 40, 50 years old. I know that those numbers aren't real, but yeah, that's kind of where I really at this point just kind of want to kind of open this up, and I kind of threw a lot of information out there real fast, but just kind of want to open up to you guys and let you guys ask some questions.
What does the I stand for on the AMI?
Infrastructure.
Yeah, infrastructure.
Meter infrastructure?
It is. It's my.
What do you think of it?
Yeah. The I is infrastructure. It's about infrastructure. And what you do is you put a collector. We did the town of Leavenworth recently, AMI, and so they have 3 collectors. All their meters connect to that and broadcast all that information right to that. Yeah.
So what about, so our infrastructure is, we only have a few new water lines, like we did a street a few years ago. So do you have to do it in conjunction? I mean, I like the ALD thing, I think would be pointless, because I think we have a lot of water leaks that, I mean, it's the visual thing, but does it matter, like because right now we're trying, the last 3 years, have tried to replace 10% of our meters per year. But we have some meters that are older than 50 years.
Yeah.
That apparently work just fine, but depends who you ask now, because that was the old person that said, the old maintenance guy said they work just fine, and now the new guys aren't. But so if we have these other issues, does this, I mean, putting an automated meter like AMR, AMI, does that, a smart meter anyway,
Yeah.
is that okay? I mean, is it like it's kind of fruitless because we have these other infrastructure issues with the actual lines, or have you seen that? Like,
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's just start with AMR. I mean, AMR. It's where the area it's going to help. It's going to help increase billing and help efficiency in reading meters.
regardless, it's just the same as the meter we have now, except it's automated.
Yeah. It's automated and it's going to be a lot more accurate than what you have now.
Okay.
And
if we ever change out lines on a street, say, is it easy just to, like, say in 3 years we got a grant after we put these in on a street, is it easy enough to then swap the lines out to still reconnect to those, or is it?
Yeah, well, because you're going to have your meters are all in a meter box, and so it goes from your main line up the service line to the meter to the house typically, and so putting in a meter doesn't matter if you're doing line replacement. That customer always has to have a meter. So I guess my thing is the sooner you replace that meter, the more benefit you're going to get from that replacement.
Regardless of what's going on before it gets to the meter, you're still,
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
helping.
And then you mentioned something about Fairfield. Are you aware, I mean, do you ever work with cities, or do you help try to get grant funding, or find, like, are you aware of, like, Department of Health, or how they do that, or is that?
So we really haven't jumped in on that's a really good question, because we really haven't got involved in the grant side of it. And I'm trying to figure out how to answer this politically correctly. Selling meters is busy enough to, and maybe getting into that is something we've talked about as a company quite a bit, and really working with a customer. A lot of times there's somebody at the city that does those grant applications, and so usually there's towns that I know that need somebody that can do that, and we encourage them to. But it's not something that up to this point, we really got involved in the grant writing of it.
And then you have to can you do it piecemeal? Like I said, we have a schedule that, whether it's followed or not, but like 10% a year. So do you have to go all in? Like, do you have to replace them all at once, or can you do it on a phased cycle?
No, I'll give you, so I've got two things, points here. Phasing in is, we have a lot of customers that do that. Couple reasons is if you replace all your meters tomorrow, then in 20 years, all your meters should be most likely, especially with a battery meter, it's going to,
All at once.
not necessarily all at once, but it's going to put it in a tighter grouping, right? Probably not that big a deal in 20 years. Who knows what the reading technology is going to be? It's not going to be the same thing we're using right now. I can guarantee that. And then the other thing on that kind of a little bit back to the grant writing and that kind of stuff. We have worked a little bit with a company, Apollo Solutions, and they go out and help find grants and stuff like that. And I'm working with Friday Harbor up on the San Juan Islands. They have about 1,600 connections. And Apollo's working on getting them some grants and applying for grants. And then they're a ESCO company where they provide a guarantee and everything. And maybe it's somebody you guys should talk to. We've done a couple projects with them. But I think Friday Harbor's in the point that they're trying, their grants aren't coming, taking too long to get grants. And so they have a 10% a year replacement of meters. So they've actually just started moving forward with just a phased in process. We went as part of the working with Apollo. We put in 40 meters as a test meter, and they take out meters and show how inaccurate the old meters are. So we put in 40 meters, and then they've gone through and ordered, 40, 50, 60 more. They're still under 100 meters, and so they actually just purchased the software, the reading equipment, and all that kind of stuff. And they're just gonna, and really what's gonna happen is if grants don't come through, they're just gonna phase it in, and if they've got some extra money, they're going to put it towards that. There's a couple, every city has different things going on. They've got their water foreman retires at the end of the year. The city manager that's driving this project retires in March of next year. and so I think it's kind of put a little bit of things on hold a little bit there too. But yeah, it's phasing that in. I'm working with Garfield right now. They've got 10 meters in. Washtuckna's got 10 meters in, and they're just they're kind of working with Apollo. But I don't know how well that's going to work out. And if that doesn't work, they want to go forward and they're going to end up figuring out where to get money and to start purchasing, purchasing the software and stuff.
How much what's like a standard AMR meter?
So this meter, I just ran some quick numbers. We have a scale of, bigger the system, less they pay, smaller system, but around $215 for this meter. I just ran some quick numbers when I was sitting in your office over there, and really meters, I ran it off at 230, but 260. So you're probably, maybe $70,000 for meters, maybe not quite 70,000. So probably about 80,000 for software and everything you need to replace meters. And I'll run some numbers. I need to what I need is I want to get an accurate count of meters by size, and we can do a good budget. We can do a budget quote for you, and that's a number you guys should know. Hey, what's the cost? What's this cost going to be? Whether it's us or another meter manufacturer, we're going to be
How does that compare to the mechanical meter then?
Mechanical meters, if you're just doing mechanical meters, a mechanical meter, just like I have one on the test out there. It's a Badger meter. I'm not sure what you guys use. A mechanical meter costs $100 at the most. But you can put an electronic register on your mechanical meter, and you can convert your existing meters to be a drive-by system. But you don't gain. You have old meters in the ground, so you're not gaining that accuracy, and just the and then you still have to replace that meter somewhere in the near future, down the road. And so really to implement this, it'd be best to just go through and take out manual or red mechanical meters.
Because we're budgeting $9,000 or $10,000 a year with the assumption that they're 900. I thought they were 900. That's what I was told. Maybe that's the labor to put them in then. But I mean, we were in our current budgets for our replacement program. I was under the impression they were for our mechanicals they were $900. But that might be for our labor then, I guess, or I don't really know. But that's what we were told from our now retired public works guy. So
and
maybe kick back.
let's just
But that's fine. No, that's
Yeah, if you have to replace a setter can be a couple $100 where your meter mounts in there. Replace a box, another couple $100. The actual labor, can depend. But typically, like we go in, most of the time, if even really old setters don't need to be replaced very often. There's always some that have to be taken out. But we charge anywhere about $75 to $100 for a meter change out. We have tech guys that will come in and do the whole change out as a project for you.
Oh, you do, so you guys provide that?
Yeah.
Do you have to pay software every year?
Yes. So really good question. Software, there's some initial setup fees for the software to get it set up. There's a cost for the billing software interface to get that set up, but then there's an annual hosting cost. And for the amount of meters you guys have, it's about $1,700 a year for 260 meters. And you guys we have a level, we have 100 meters, 250, then 800. So it puts you just right over that. The up to 250 is 1,400 a year. So it does, and then that next level, you can go all the way up to 800 meters in that next level. So just that's Camstrup's structure. So you kind
I
of push.
know a lot of places are between 250 and 800.
So, yeah.
Is it, do we want to run outside, or is it too dark to do that?
I turned the porch lights on.
Take a couple minutes and go out and
Yeah.
look? That's up to the council, not to
Sure,
you.
let's go for it.
Well, so in case we don't really gather back here, just a couple closing thoughts for me. Take my card if you have any questions. Love to answer it, and really, we'll show you. I guess I also what we're going to show you is we've got a Camstrup, our AMI meter, and it actually has a little thumbprint on here, and so it'll toggle to actual flow on there. So we have it in line with the mechanical meter, and we can show you that we can turn that meter, turn that flow down to where it's just a real steady drip, and that mechanical meter, it's not sensing it's water's flowing through there, and it's not moving anything in that mechanical meter. But yeah.
So, 2 quick questions from me. How would you say that Camstrup, and specifically your sale of that, compares to other options in the smart meter market? Would you say you're towards the top end of that market, or mid, or low, or what?
So Camstrup, I'll answer it in one way. Camstrup developed an ALD meter, acoustic leak detection meter. Nobody else has an acoustic leak detection meter. Camstrup actually developed the ultrasonic technology that meters that all the other meter manufacturers have followed. They've been using ultrasonic technology for over 30 years in meters, and only came into the U.S. 8 or 9 years ago. But all the other most all the other meter manufacturers are now following suit and have an ultrasonic meter. So I think they've kind of led a lot of the technology development in the meter industry. If you go into Northern Europe, Camstrup has 60, 70, 80% of the volume in Europe. They really have a good base there, and so yeah, I think that Camstrup's. I'll tell you, they are very aggressive about new business. We come into the marketplace priced really well. I'm not going to say we're always going to be the cheapest, but we have a great product that's well received in the marketplace. Went from a few installations in 3 years to well over 60 installations. And even in just the past week, Bridgeport is going to start purchasing Camstrup meters. Colfax, they're going to start purchasing. They're going to start a meter replacement program using meters, and Fairfield. All this within this last week. And that's my territory. We have 5 outside sales guys cover Washington and Oregon. So I mean, we're very busy. The other thing is we do inventory meters right now. Every manufacturer is slow on getting product if you can get it. And we warehouse meters in Redmond. We have $250,000, $500,000 orders of meters coming in once or twice a month right now, trying to stay up with inventory. I can't guarantee that we're not going to be there, that we're not going to have meters when you need them, but hopefully you don't have to wait more than a week or two. And that's really important in the marketplace today. Talk to just about any of the other meter manufacturers, and most of them, if you want meters, it's 3 to 4 to 6 months.
Okay, my last question then is, and this may well be true for any product in this particular field, but did you say that the reading protocols are proprietary?
Yes. So yes, all that stuff is encrypted. It takes Camstrup software, hardware to read that Camstrup meter. Everything is all encrypted. There's no, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes, run outside real quick. Yeah.
It's only about $100.
Yeah, but that's because it's proprietary. It seems to me you should be able to buy it and you should be able to use it for years unless there's lots of new updates.
Yeah, the updates is what you're paying for,
Yeah,
because that way your system stays current.
but
That'll be their objection too.
I wonder if he's ever heard of a weather rock. You haven't? They used to sell them when we were down at the Oregon coast. I saw some last time, and they got rocks, some of them painted, little flowers and stuff on them. And if it's wet, it's raining. If it's dry, it's not.
There you
So,
go.
That's what we kind of use the weather rock system here to detect if we have any leaks in town.
Yeah, definitely.
That's pretty sad, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah, we'll be able to tell if you guys got a leak in pipe.
Yeah. We have somebody walk around barefoot to detect the leaks in the pavement.
Right, I mean, you have to have certified.
We will install them. I don't go after the install. I don't know. our guy in Oregon goes after the install a lot more than I do. We've got tax, but we're busy enough with other stuff.
Do you already have your card?
Yeah. So Jerry, can you get a list of connections by size to me so I can do a real accurate budget quote for you guys?
In pipe size or volume size?
Yeah, I want to know how many 5/8, 3/4 meters you have, how many 1-inch meters, how many 1.5 inch, 2 inch.
I'll talk to the public works guys about that, since they're starting reading meters.
So a lot of times in your billing system, a lot of times is it in bias? I wonder if that information's in bias. Because a lot of systems they have what size meters are in there and how many, because a lot of systems they bill different rates off of different size meters.
Yeah, I don't think we have that.
How do you pronounce it? What's the name of it again?
Camstrup?
Camstrup.
Camstrup.
Strup, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out, Dean, and spending some time with us. We're gonna keep rolling here.
Yeah, thank you. Have a safe trip
I'm
back.
just gonna clean up as
Yeah,
you guys
no
go
problem.
and get the head on out.
You might stick around and maybe you can vote.
So, it's just my magic telling what's going through there, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, it's this. There's sensor, that sensor, and that sensor. It sends a little signal through there, and if you look in there, there's a little thing inside there. It's actually like a little reflector, so it channels that sound back and forth in there. Okay.
Keep in mind, Jess, you have to go wind them up every year.
Well, mine's in a nice warm basement, so that's not a problem.
Do you have any technology?
Is you know where yours is?
I thought that's the mayor's job, is to go around and wind all the water
it's
meters.
all it's all
Out in
battery
snow.
powered.
Yeah.
So
They automatically stop January
No.
1st. We gotta go out in
Mayor's
snow.
going to address that with the new treasurer.
they do have some of the guys are using some cellular technology.
Whoever that
but
lucky
the cellular
person may
technology-
be.
Camstrup's not jumping on board with that because cellular technology.
We'll auction that off at the Lions Club.
It's obsolete as soon as you start it.
There you go.
That's sensible.
Yeah. Okay, David, I know you made some mention, Mike agreed to come in and talk with us. We had some council questions, specifically, with our cemetery endowment fund. I guess I'm gonna kind of turn that over to you, just because you had addressed it. If you have some questions that you wanna talk to Mike about.
Well, there's a couple questions, there it is. First of all, when did it start? And how did it start?
When did the endowment start?
Yeah.
I don't have that date for you.
Okay.
But it's been around long before I've been around.
And what type of endowment is it?
It's a combination of cash and investments, but it is essentially just an endowment. And an endowment, you do not spend the principal. That's the whole purpose of an endowment.
I wish I had all those notes with me, but I don't.
And your goal is to allow the endowment to build, and then you utilize the interest off of that principal to operate on,
So it's,
whatever the endowment happens to be for.
yeah, I know there's three types, but that is an interest, it is the type you're talking, I can't tell you what the heck that is now, but what kind of interest, where's it invested and
Currently, there is $75,000 in U.S. bonds through U.S. Bank. Those yielded us this year, we just deposited that interest, was $2,046.20 in interest this past year. They are at a fantastic interest rate. Mayor Gilliland really chased those babies down. When the interest rates were high, he took cash and put it into those bonds And as you saw this month, one of those matured. So it's now been reverted to cash into our treasurer's checking account. We've had 3 others mature that went into cash in the treasurer's checking account, so they are sitting there along with the rest of the endowment's cash. What my goal ultimately is to do is to, before I leave office, is to get the full $500,000 that is in that endowment. Well, I should say the full $500,000 minus what is still currently in bonds. So it's going to be roughly $430,000 that is currently in cash in our treasurer's checking account. I would like to transfer that. This is something I've been just pokey about, but transfer it over into the local government investment pool with the state of Washington, because at least there it's earning about 2% interest. Right now in the checking account, $430,000 isn't earning any interest. So you've been getting fantastic interest on these bonds. $2,000 is a whale of a lot of interest. Just as an example, our current money market account with U.S. Bank, which sits at a balance of $183,000, earns us currently 77 cents a month. So these bonds that earn us $2,000 a year are a fantastic investment. I would love to find bonds that would pay that kind of money now. They just don't. I haven't investigated, but they just don't. That's just my general knowledge. But what I would like to do is take that $430,000 of the endowment, the principal, and move it out of that treasurer's checking and put it in the local government investment pool with the state.
Didn't we approve that?
You did. You did. I just have not gotten the paperwork done with the state treasurer's office. We've got to basically assign the banking accounts that we can move money from our banking accounts into the LGIP. So it's just a matter of me contacting the right person at the treasurer's office, and I have the manual. I just need to get it done. So you just don't spend that $500,000. You can't dip into it.
It's a tool to.
It's an interest. It's an interest making tool, and the interest that comes off of that principal goes into our cemetery fund, into our cemetery maintenance fund.
Okay.
So that's an extra $2,000 a year that you get to spend on cemetery maintenance that you normally wouldn't have, and you don't want to take that away. You really, really, really want to encourage people to invest in the endowment because it continues to build and gain interest. You get no interest off of donations to just the cemetery maintenance fund. You just spend that money, and then it's gone. So I would always encourage you in your cemetery letter each year to really encourage people to invest in the endowment, because it continues to grow and it will forever be something that will maintain our cemetery.
That's good clarification, I think. I mean, definitely for me.
Okay. Yeah, so we put that interest into our cemetery, and that's, okay.
Yep.
That was one of my questions, is
Yep.
where it goes.
So but we're only getting 2,000, I mean, say only, but
2%.
so $2,000 a year from the endowment goes to pay for the cemetery. The rest of that cemetery money comes from the city then.
Yep.
So with what you want to get done by the end of the year, putting the remaining cash into the local investment fund, we'll have the remainder of the bonds for the time in which we have them. Plus the rest of that cash producing 2% interest, so we'll have somewhere in the vicinity of $11,000 a year is the net output of it after the changes that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. That's, I mean, I think I should know, maybe not Justin, but more than everybody else, but that clarified things for me, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
David, do you have any other questions on that, or any other council members on the endowment fund?
Not at this time, no. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
And always, please remember, if you have questions, you have my email. If there's something that specifically you want to put on the public record and you need me here to answer for, I'm happy to come to a council meeting. But if it's just a general question like, hey, what was the balance this month on this account? What did we spend on this kind of thing? If it's just a curiosity question that you don't feel like you need, the whole council needs a clarification on, just shoot me an email and I'm happy to answer it.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
So you can choose to answer this now, or if you think it's better separately, that's fine, but there was questions last time about why we have, or the benefits, and I'd said before that Bunny was the one that had told me, but as a former council member of 18 years, why not have the question came up was, why don't we have a separate cemetery district that manages it, takes it out of the city's purview? And I don't know if you, as a council member, as a former council member, if that ever came up or if you knew from a council perspective, or if it came up, because there's some other areas that have a cemetery district, then the city is not responsible for, and then that $500,000 would go to the Harrington Cemetery District, and they would maintain, and so do you know anything about that, or is that something you would be willing to speak about now, or do you know enough now, or?
That issue was never, ever addressed in any of my memory as being on the council. The cemetery is a huge source of pride for the community, to be perfectly honest.
Sure.
The citizens, I know the citizens appreciate being able to come in to the city hall and say, hey, I've been up there, this needs to be taken care of, I've seen this, please do this, whatever. They have access. And they know that their city will respond and go take care of their concerns. As a former council member, and my knee-jerk reaction to that, to thinking of changing it to a district, is that you've now removed it to some distant entity. If it's a district, you don't have to have city people unless you specify that in his bylaws or whatever, and that's not something I really know anything about. But I feel like you're taking it out of the city and you're taking it away from the citizens. Somebody who lives in the cemetery district now could serve on the cemetery district board, rather than just making sure that the city council, the city maintenance people, the mayor, whoever, is answering directly to the community for that cemetery that people are so proud of. I would, and again, it's just me personally, away from treasurer position or anything else, I would not recommend going that route.
Well, it's just really, I think, a question. I couldn't answer it. The only thing I said was, in my conversations when I was the mayor and conversing with the former clerk, she always said that it was not a good idea, but I didn't know, and so there's not a lot of institutional knowledge anymore, and so having you here, being on the council for 18 years is just...
I appreciate that, and thank you. I just would, the other thoughts that I would throw out there is then that district is going to have to spend an awful lot of money contracting somewhere to do opens and closes, to maintain everything. I think, quite honestly, you wind up, because you have the assets of the city, it makes maintaining that cemetery much easier. And for so long, the city did all the mowing. Yeah, we contract that now, which, quite honestly, as a citizen, as a private citizen, that is fantastic. I tell you what, every Wednesday when I look out my schoolroom window and they're doing the park, and I know the cemetery's being done every week, I think that is money well spent. That's just me as a private citizen. You guys aren't having to worry about maintaining the mower that gets beat to death. You aren't constantly repairing that. You're not paying fuel costs. You're not paying insurance costs. You're not paying all those costs. You're forking out one bill, and you're getting a good result for that bill. Even though it's expensive, I mean, honestly, the clerk is the one who's going to answer the question as to how many complaints have you had about the cemetery mowing this year. Has anybody come in and griped at you about the cemetery and the way it looks?
About 6 people.
Okay, that would normally be about a week's worth in previous times. And I know that's an exaggeration.
No.
But honestly, the number, because of the mowing and the maintenance and everything else, it was a headache for the clerk. And I just can't tell you enough that I just applaud the council for its wisdom to continue that contract. And then that's just me yakking as a private citizen, not as your treasurer. Thanks for letting me have that comment.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. I do want to jump in on one other thing with the treasurer. I know you guys did not get a treasurer's report at the last meeting. I've been trying to balance the treasurer's receipts against the bank balance, and I've got about 4 or 5 different receipts that don't match up. With us not having a bank in town, the clerk is not able to make daily deposits, and so those all come through in just slugs. And trying to make sure that we have all the numbers lined up correctly is a difficult job for the clerk and myself and the bank. So right now I've got 4 receipts where I have a receipt for this amount, and I got to find it somewhere in that bank statement. And I realize that should be pretty easy, but I'm still, sometimes those come through and they're matched together or they're not matched together, and I'm digging all that apart. So I apologize for the lateness of the treasurer's report, but it will come to you eventually.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? I'll let you go. You're obviously welcome to stay, but if you don't want to.
I'm good at time.
The money that came from the endowment and now is in the treasury from the cemetery or for the cemetery, is that money earmarked for cemetery use only?
Yes, it is the cemetery endowment fund. So it's by, I believe it's by ordinance, and I'd have to go look this up, but by ordinance, we have an ordinance that says that principal, the interest that is earned on that principal, on that account, on that $500,000, whatever it is, has to go to cemetery maintenance. It can't go anywhere else.
Okay.
I believe you're right on that.
Yeah. I just don't know if it was an ordinance resolution or whatever it was, but when it was set up, that was how it was set up, is that it has to go there.
That money does not go into the general fund then, it's earmarked for
It does not go into current expense, right? It
Yeah.
goes into cemetery maintenance.
Good.
Okay. Everybody's good? Thank you, Mike.
I just would also then just ask if you, I mean, to try to make it you said you want to do it before you're done, but it sounds like the amount of money that we could be earning in the
Pretty
local
substantial.
government could be a lot higher.
Yeah.
And so that would, I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, you spent so many years on this council, you know that every penny like that counts. So,
Absolutely.
so thank you.
Thank you for your willingness to come talk to us.
Yeah. I appreciate the mayor
And the
extending.
clarification too.
Huh?
And the clarification, like I said, I'm a little embarrassed at some of the things that you said I wasn't fully aware of, but that's good for everybody involved.
Well, again, a lot of it comes from sitting where you guys are sitting for 18 years. I mean, that wasn't because I learned it as the treasurer, it's because I learned it here. And so it takes a long time to build up that institutional knowledge. And so no one who's new to the council or who has been a mayor for a year or two should be expected to know how everything works. And that's why we hope then that we find councilmen who are willing to sit for longer periods of time. So they build the institutional knowledge. And honestly, even though my term comes to an end in December, I would encourage you to continue to reach out to me. I'm here. You might as well ask something. I mean, if I can help, if you want me to come visit a council meeting as a guest and comment on something from my memories of the long distant past, I'm happy to do it.
We'll keep your desk open. You still have a workspace.
There we go. There we
Just for
go.
clarification, I think it's January 12th. It's the first meeting in January is when our terms are.
An extra 2 weeks tacked on there.
All I know is it comes before the next annual report and before the next audit.
Well, there's a COVID pandemic, there's a moratorium on that, so you have to go another year.
A moratorium on leaving public position.
That's right. It's not, so.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
You
Appreciate
bet.
it. Mike well, let's just go on over here. Fall Festival, this is just an update. I want to give you guys, things have been kind of scattered back and forth.
My email address.
No.
Cronrath, so M-C-R-O-N.
You
ready for him to talk?
R-A-T-H.
Parade update,
Sorry.
Fall Fest. Things have went back and forth a little bit. This is just a quick clarification. I kind of want to update you guys in case you didn't know. Fall Festival,
School district.
still on,
SB.
it's going, it will happen.
D as
D.
in
Parade will not.
Okay.
The
Harrington,
parade has been
SD.
canceled, it
Okay.
volleyed back and forth a little bit, but
That's my school email, you can email me there anytime.
that's
Okay.
really all I wanted to update
Phone
on.
number?
The street closure,
59
talked to WashDOT, Jerry did a lot of work there
954.
with WashDOT. I think it,
3803.
and maybe I'm mistaken on this, but I think at some point there was some talk of that
A lot of times.
procedure taking a long time to get our street closure through, approved through WashDOT. It's not the case. We were a little bit late to the ball this year, and it was not a problem. We have to amend it a little bit because the parade's not happening. We're changing what it's been previously, but just kind of an FYI on that. It's not a terrible timeline to get street closure, so. And then David wanted to talk a little bit about the Pacific Northwest Boys, which is, we received an email from Sherry regarding them as a vendor at Fall Fest. So David, I'll kind of give that to you. Questions or comments that you
Well-
had with that?
Well, I was just kind of wondering what steps, well, first of all, I sent out an email, an answer to that, and I don't have that pulled up, apologize, but regards to traffic control and.
They don't want to do that this year though now.
Yeah,
So they've withdrawn that request and only want to be a vendor.
okay,
And that was my initial understanding, so I had no problem with that. I told Chase that you're doing the vendors, working with Lions Club. At first, my understanding was just to have the booth, and so that's not a problem. We have 20 other booths, or however many people are coming. And then that got changed into a little bit, maybe there would be some motorized,
yeah, exhibition.
yes. And I thought, okay, well, that's a different story, and that's where your email came in with some of the concerns. And so I
Now
just,
that they're back to being a vendor, we have no actionable concern.
no.
Okay.
No,
Right.
I treat it as somebody selling cotton candy or, I mean, any other vendor that's there.
And I believe that's gonna be on school property still, or there's something, or
I
part.
believe so. I think
Yeah.
it's some- yeah.
My only concern was if they're gonna do that on the street, set up crowd control and liability, not necessarily for them, but if they were to damage somebody's flower
Sure.
garden or car, you know, something.
And going forward, if that's something that maybe next year
Yes.
we see that's a request, and there's gonna be some different guidelines to follow there, some different steps to take, but.
You know, just for the record for anybody is, I'm not opposed to any of that type of activity, but I think some more legwork and, you know, some logistical aspects need to be worked out ahead, you know, a little bit
Yeah,
sooner.
no,
Well, we saw the video too. Did you guys watch the video?
Yes, yes.
I mean, a little kid on the front, no helmet, like, I don't think you want to do that on on a city property.
Right.
I mean, so, yeah, I mean, again, I think there's, coming a week and a half ahead of time, probably not the best, but if they plan it out and then they have,
all those things in place.
but I mean, like in Odessa, to be in the parade in Odessa, you'd have a $300,000 insurance rider on your auto insurance to have a float in there, right? I mean, that costs a couple $100 just for their parade, and you have to put Odessa, so other towns do those types of things for things like that, so, I mean, there's a cost to it, but I think the city shouldn't,
We should protect the
yeah,
city.
no, right, I mean, because ultimately if it's on city property and they're doing it, and then they go off and this, you know, the bike runs off in somebody's house, the city's gonna be, if there's not that insurance type of thing.
Yeah,
The waiver, the point you made on the waivers, I think were spot on, so.
thank you, yeah.
Okay.
So I guess no issue then.
Yeah, no, we're good. The next thing on the agenda was the $5,000 Treasury Bond. Mike kind of did touch on that. That was just, again, an FYI, just to allow you guys to knowledge that had matured and could be deposited. Yeah, just a update on that.
The only thing I'd ask both the clerk and the mayor then is, we passed that as a council, I think, last year. And so we've lost then potentially $8,000 or $10,000 per year for the last 2 years. And so to keep maybe pushing him every month for the next 3 months, like a general reminder, hey, have you done this
Sure.
yet? He said, it's on his priority list, but I thought it was a priority because he came to the council, I think it was 18 months ago when he came, like in January, February of
2020.
20, and we passed it, and I'm shocked that it hadn't been done yet. So,
Was that the one where we voted to move the investments out of?
because it's sitting in a cash account right now that makes 77 cents a month, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Something like that.
And it's into the local government investment pool, which is the state of Washington
Right.
money. It's a managed fund that's, so,
Okay, yeah, so,
but that's the one, yes, that we did. So I thought that was already, I would have thought that had already been done, so.
good point.
That's a lot of, I mean, $8,000 to $10,000 a year for us, especially with that cemetery, or to be able to do that. I mean, that could
Half
pay
of
for a
our
building, that
bill.
could pay for, I mean, it could put a meter out there, it could pay for a new water. I mean, there's a lot of things it could pay for.
Well, see, that explains a lot too, because from the get-go, I know nothing about this. I mean, I knew there was funds up there, but I never heard how much we earn or how much is available to us, or where it goes.
Right.
So, I mean, it was clarification, I appreciate that.
And that's only for the endowment. You can
Yeah.
also donate to the cemetery fund directly, and that doesn't earn interest, but that just goes straight to it,
Right.
and people can, then that way you can fix it that way too.
Yes, the key is, he made a good argument, I think, for the value of donating to the endowment, but I think we should maybe be clear as a council and then also as the clerk, that if a person comes in and says, I want to give some money, we need to give a follow-up question to say, okay, to what end? Do you want to see something done in the near term, or do you want to invest in the long term? Because his point is valid that as far as the most value, yes, and the endowment will go the furthest over time. You can't really argue that. But if a person's giving money and saying, well, I just gave $10,000 to the cemetery and they don't do a thing with it, well, we should be upfront with them to make sure that that's clear, because otherwise we just buy ourselves grief if they think that they're donating money that's going to get spent and then they put it in a fund that we can't spend from.
That's a very good point, Stephen, and to add to that, right now, what do we currently tell people when they do, what are the choices?
We get checks in the mail, and they tell us what they want.
Okay.
But somebody could come in and ask that, and I think
Very few people come in and ask.
So they say,
They
well,
already know what they want.
here's 50 grand to go to the cemetery, and then what the heck do you do with that at that
They
point?
choose. They already,
They already sit right on there what it
it's
is?
checkbox.
they'll say cemetery
Endowment or
endowment.
maintenance.
Okay, yeah. And so it's on a form, it's just not writing a blank check, I mean, not a blank check, but,
It doesn't happen very often like that. I
okay.
think you've had some that came in and
I-
don't check, but
I had a recent $5,000 donation, and I asked him if he wanted it to go to the endowment fund or if he wanted it to go to the maintenance fund. And he looked at me and said, where the greatest need is right now. And I said, that would probably be maintenance. He said, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
And if you need more for the endowment, let me know.
And I would frame it a little, just my opinion, I'd frame it differently. I wouldn't call it the maintenance fund, because what I just heard is that really in many ways the endowment is for maintenance, being a goal of getting it to have a big bunch of cash that produces money, that does things consistently over time. It would be that interest, even if we improve it, will be a little bit of a struggle to do a lot with it. Instead, I would frame it as the improvement fund or the maintenance fund, because the improvement fund is what's going to be like if I want to see change there, that's going to happen through what right now we're calling the maintenance fund. And I get why you're saying, I'm not trying to critique you, I'm just saying from almost a marketing standpoint, from people understanding intuitively what they will or won't see, calling it the maintenance fund.
Well, that
It's called the
That comes
endowment
to
fund,
mind
so-
because I work in biosol.
Right, no, and I
So,
get that,
yeah.
it's just most people coming in don't have the benefit of knowing these budget line items the way we do.
Right.
we
Good point.
have an improvement, a maintenance, and an endowment.
I would support what Councilman Stephen,
So-
or he said.
Okay. Surplus properties, I just wanna keep touching on that, I don't wanna spend a ton of time, but I'm still doing some research on the logistics of it, but we've talked about it quite a few times, and I don't think I haven't collected a general thought. How do we want, as a council, the properties that we choose to surplus or sell, how do we want to sell those?
Have you, as the mayor, have you contacted an attorney, legal on this, the parameters that we can?
No, I want to find out how we
Okay.
want to go about it before I contact them. And
I think from
do we have a?
what I've seen before is in the Davenport Times or some sort of published paper, in the legals, they'll say surplus property.
But do we want to do a closed, sealed bid, open bid, auction? Do we want to sell it to the first person that comes in and says, "I'll take it for $100"? How do we want to convey those sales? I think we should keep it the
don't
same
think you
through
could-
all the properties.
I wouldn't agree, because for one thing, like the property next to Reese is gonna be one way of probably approaching them. The others, that we don't think are going to be highly desirable might take a different marketing than what's over by Levi on Olaf Street.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I'm seeing at least three categories to it. It's like you've got adjacent properties that are beneficial to a particular person. You've got properties that are not likely to be highly desirable to anyone that we're trying to divest of. And then you've got maybe very few, if maybe only one property that's desirable that we might want to put a little effort into increasing our return specifically.
I think though, to David's point, I think we have to figure out too, what is, you gotta like set the price. So at some level, I don't know what the price is, but at some level, I think as a public entity, you have to somehow then have a market value.
Yeah.
So if that's like a CMA from an agent, you have to have an appraisal done. What,
I don't think any of our properties will reach that threshold, but we could definitely.
I don't know if it's
keep
$1,000 or
them on
if
50.
that's $50,000 is the threshold.
We have enough parties interested.
No,
Okay,
I think-
well, we'll
Yeah.
revert back to what we talked about before then. I will,
I'd wait to talk to legal and see what the parameters are, so that way we know what we can and cannot do. And what's general, the norm of other cities, just what
sure.
procedure. I guess options, procedure.
So MRSC had, I know the answers to those questions. Not off the top of my head, but, so we went through the same process with the fire truck.
Okay.
So we know, what, it has to be published, the threshold for money, for the amount, the dollar amount. There's different processes. We just have to choose how we want to sell them. So do we,
Well,
so
I think like the lot by Levi, that's probably, you maybe get an agent and market that, right? That's a developable, that's a buildable lot that
sure,
you could market that and make them earn their commission, right?
Yep.
And then the property, like at Reese as an example, that's a conversation with that property owner to say, how do we come up here?
sure.
And then the other ones, if they're just random, I don't know that we sell the state shed, but to say that,
Right,
that might be, a different conversation and say, well, who's the most likely buyer? Is it the neighbor that lives next door, or is it somebody that's anybody?
Across the street, anybody.
Anybody,
Sure.
but so I think it's gonna be property by property specific to those, because they're all gonna be a little bit different.
I think I'll try to meet up with the committee then, and we can run through that and decide, we can come up with what we think best is for
There's a
the,
collection of properties that the greatest value to the city will just simply be not owning it.
not
The amount
having,
of money that we get from it is almost
sure,
irrelevant.
I agree. Okay. Well, I will, we'll do some background, some legwork on that with the committee then. Johnson Family Towing Lease Agreement. That was initially set for a 2-year period, as I read. Transition of people, whatever the reason, it didn't get done on that 2-year mark. Have you guys read that lease agreement?
No.
They had a 2-year option, right?
Correct.
So
I did skim through it, but I don't know what the old one was. Could you summarize the significant changes, or is it just a straight?
That's the
No,
other
that
lease.
is the old
That's
one.
Lease.
That's
Oh,
the
that's
signed
the old
lease.
That's the
Oh,
that's the
I'm
existing
sorry, I
lease
thought
right
that
now.
was the proposed new one.
No, No, I wanted to see if there was any quarrels with the current
I think,
lease.
was that emailed out?
Yeah, it was
It's
in
in
the
the
packet.
packet that Jerry sent.
Okay, I just got that.
It's under Johnson Family
Okay.
Towing Lease is the name of the document.
Get back out of there real quick.
Would you say that, in your opinion, they have been a good tenant for the property?
Have you read it?
To be completely honest with you, I haven't
was
really
there when
dealt
we
with
did the
them that
original,
much.
Or when we actually put it together.
Very little with just kind of the end of the heater, getting the heater installed. Really, I haven't dealt with them enough.
Do
Do we have any complaints about their property with how it's set up or whatever?
No.
It came up as a part of the junk vehicle ordinance
Yeah.
discussion, but I don't know that that was a formal complaint to the clerk. It came up in a council meeting only.
Okay, and then,
They do pay their bills.
yeah, and then, no issues, so they obviously, they fenced it, but we have the access to the sand pit, whatever that's called.
The sand filters.
But no, we've had no problems in terms of like just accessibility or,
Not that I'm aware of.
Not that I've heard of.
So they've been in there for 2 years?
Or,
Okay.
yeah,
What was it?
May of
May
19, so-
19.
28 months,
And we're currently getting how much?
$1,000 a month.
And there's an adjustment in that lease for when we renew.
Now, I had heard, are they living in there too?
That I don't know.
I don't know where I got that from, but I think somebody had mentioned, I thought maybe it was at the council meeting, that it's a residence too, but I don't know.
Is there anything
So it
that
says-
addresses that in the lease? I don't.
What it says here, let's see. So it says leasing may have the right to renew the lease with a total of 1 renewal period, with each term being 2 years, which may be exercised by giving written notice to the lessor no less than 60 days prior to the expiration date. So did they ask us if they could renew?
Is that when they dropped this off, Jerry? That was their.
It was
That thing expired.
early
I
July.
don't know, if you scroll down a little bit.
Yeah.
So then
Keep
the
going.
rent increase is CPI from the initial term, so $1,000 and it's gonna increase by whatever CPI. If it's 3%, then it'll be
Oh, first?
1,030 or something.
Let's see, you were asking that about.
There's the number one. Term of lease,
Use of leased premises.
okay, term of lease there, June 1st, 19, so yeah, we missed
So-
it.
Well,
But you were asking
Good.
about
Are
living
you
there.
Yeah,
That would be
asking
under
for a
the-
vote on this?
well, more of a straw poll, I think. I mean, would you guys feel comfortable if this same lease was, I mean, this is obviously the signed one, but if this was another blank one to renew it, if we kept it the same, I wanted to see if there's any changes, if we need to address anything before it's renewed.
I would change the dates and roll with it.
So
Yeah.
Justin said about the cost increase
Yeah,
for the CPI.
That's built into it though.
Right.
yeah.
And really, it's not on us, it's on them. If they came and said they want to do it, then we just need to renew it and then just increase it. To the usage point, it says that they should, with respect to use and occupancy, they shall not conduct or permit to be conducted upon the premises any business which is in violation of any law, rule, regulation, or requirement by authority or by any insurance company which the premises is insured. And it says, nor will the leasee allow the premises to be used in any way which will invalidate or conflict with the insurance policies. No, in no event shall explosives or extra hazardous materials be taken onto or retained on the premises. So that's the only usage restriction.
So in other words, as long as they were to insure it to cover residency, they'd be legal.
We're insuring it too, aren't we?
We have general insurance and stuff, but they have like renter's insurance,
Right.
basically.
I wonder what our policy would state.
The other thing that I see here too, is the ability for inspection. That's something that we could
Yeah.
obviously do before we chose to renew.
Well, the other thing, so have you guys been in there?
No.
So the office is about,
About
it's a
40
little bit bigger than this concrete pad, maybe as big as this stage.
Mhm.
It has a bathroom, like a toilet, a sink, and then like a stand-up metal shower. Then it had 1 or 2 small offices.
That's what it had or has?
Well, last time I was there,
Should still.
so
have-
I did the math one time. I'd say like 80% or 90% of the building is a shop.
Mhm.
And so I don't know, it's concrete floors with, metal roof, metal siding. There was some insulation, some of it burned from the
Right.
fire. But to be living there, I don't know how and they have 2-3 kids. So 4 or 5 people living in this little space, it's not more than a couple hundred square feet of quote unquote finished area with electric baseboard heat, so.
I'll just ask for a walkthrough before we renew.
Yeah, I wouldn't get particular, just see if there's anything egregious that catches your eye,
Yep.
make it quick.
Any of the council members want to be involved?
So we're getting right now 12,000 a year, so we paid 10 for it. We've had it leased now for 2 years, so we've gotten $24,000 back, and we had to put a furnace in. So 10,000, maybe 6,000 for the furnace or something, or 5,000.
Yeah,
So we've already paid our investment back,
Mhm.
and before we were getting paid,
$100 a year.
how much?
Was it $100 a year?
Yeah, it might have been $100 a year,
It was
or
squat.
$500, some number that was
Yeah.
insane. But it was their building, they put it on, so.
Right, they were just paying to keep it on the property.
Yeah, so, I think and it's a business in town, they're.
Did we ever, that's out of city limits, correct? When you were at, it's not annexed?
It's,
Yeah,
So
that is.
It is city limits.
it's within the city limits, I believe.
No,
I don't,
Is it?
I should know that, but I
from my.
don't think so. I think between the
Oh,
McGregor
outside.
building and
Yeah.
Kevin and
It's
Hal's
just
property.
city-owned property, not within the city proper.
Do they, for
Okay.
their business, do they charge a sales tax?
I don't know.
I would think so. I don't know that.
But, so, Zundels is city property.
Yeah, don't know just for the lease.
Oh, I know.
The line, I
The back of my
believe,
pasture is the west limit, and it goes out there, and it goes right up Freese's.
east of.
Okay.
Yeah, if you drive out there,
Okay.
it definitely is west of the west border. That's why I asked if they ever,
Because Herons and Houks
yeah,
and who, Kevin, Ron Moore owns, I think, a lot or two right there. I
yeah,
think that's the edge of town.
yeah. The back of my pasture, where the blue house is, just into that, there's a fence line back there. Start of the gravel pits.
Yeah,
So this is to say it's not a city property?
I
So,
believe so.
So, and we got other things to get to, but I'm just gonna say this, put a bookmark in it. I think at some point I'd like to learn a little bit more about what the procedure is for the city annexing property. For a couple of reasons, there are some buildable lots up by the cemetery and just things that I've kind of been curious of over the years, but I don't know if the county would get upset about this and what the procedure is, but if it's a sales tax that doesn't go to the city because it's being operated on land that the city doesn't own, and where the city owns, but it's not within city bounds, like it'd be weird if we're hosting a business.
I've been
that
curious as to how that works.
is the sales tax that we're not getting on the property that we own. Something seems amiss there, and it would be interesting to see if we could annex that in to get the sales tax back off of it, because it doesn't make any difference to them. They pay the sales tax either way, but it's going to the county versus going to the city, and I'm not looking to steal out of county coffers, but it just seems like the city owns the property in the first place. It kind of makes sense that cities do the gains off of it, but
Because it's city water, but it's septic, I think, too, isn't it?
Believe so.
It's septic.
Gossett's house is the same way.
Okay.
So then going forward, we'll sign a new lease as of, say, today, or, say October 1st or something.
Mhm.
But then, so that's when the CPI adjustment will go into effect then?
Yeah, whatever the latest CPI. The other thing I would ask, just opinion on, because it's late, whatever the reason, whether it was my fault or a combination of both parties' fault, we want to restart that lease in October or keep it at the original date, and then they would essentially go 2 years from May of this year. You guys have a preference?
Well, the initial reason we did 2 years was we weren't sure. what it was gonna be like.
Yeah.
Because at the same time, there was people within the city that wanted to use that building for city, as a city shop. And so we weren't sure if we were gonna have our ducks in a row to make that a city shop, if it was viable, there was things that were, we thought 2 years and potentially a 1 year, 2 year extension without, on these exact terms, would give the city time. So extending it by 4 months, I mean, I won't be on the council when it renews or that comes up due, so it is a good, as far as I'm aware of, just based on this knowledge and just knowing that they're a business in town or near town, is that it's a good thing for the city.
And going forward, you brought that up, I just have a quick question. Has any thought been given, planning ahead for our city maintenance personnel or equipment and all that, of utilizing something like that? Is that even something to entertain at this moment?
I would say not right exactly now, but if we wanna have that discussion,
It's not a natural gas furnace.
No,
No,
it's propane, because there's no gas over there.
well, I take that back, I guess it does play into this, that's obviously gonna affect the, whether we wanna renew the lease or not, but could we do something before that time period is
It's
up?
a
I
good
don't know.
discussion, but maybe it doesn't change my opinion.
And maybe just go back to the May thing and then have it expire in 2 years from that, and they're still gonna be there for 4 years, but the 3% increase is gonna be effective of, say, October 1st. But it still carries that same lease term
Sure.
through May 31st of 20.
Well, I guess right now, we're not ready to make a move in the maintenance issues.
No.
So would we be able to do that in 2 years? Possibly, so.
If you plan it, last time when we talked about it, the
Under the
planning,
gun.
the planning was not, it was a back of the napkin that, I think they thought our costs were gonna be like under $1,000. And it was like, there was just no way, I mean, it was like, that did not make sense. And so I think, especially with the people that are in there now, and then if it's something the council or the mayor, the new mayor wants to do, you just have to plan that out. And actually, then you have time to spec it out and say, you're not rushed to do it. You have 2 years to figure, 20 months to figure out if that's really viable. And talking to the new maintenance guys. I mean, is it, because all the trucks do fit in there. I mean, Scott took he stored it in there for a while, the sand truck, the plow, because that way the sand didn't freeze or something.
Right.
And so we had that in there, and he did some maintenance work on it, because you can work in there. So, I mean, there's plenty of space to do that with indoors, and that was one of the big things. And these guys haven't worked a winter here yet, so, but we have newer equipment, so that maybe they're not gonna have to be working that much on maintenance or whatever, so. So, and that's my 2 cents, but.
Well, good points. So have we decided if we're gonna go with the May or the?
That was my question, do you guys have a preference?
I leave it May.
I guess I'd ask Jess, he'll be the one who has to deal with it.
Do you think it makes a difference?
I think you ought to just continue on with it from the way it was written before. You're talking about a rent increase, is that correct?
Yeah,
2%?
whatever the CPI is. Okay,
I know there's people there 10 o'clock at night on a regular basis. That's usually when I go out with a little 4-legged guy.
They
And
do
there's-
work, so I'm looking right now, it is city property. That's the map, right? The orange stuff is all city of Harrington,
that's the parcel, that's city limits right there.
so all the sand pits are not, that's not city.
Right, that's
Um,
county.
Okay. They do run 24 hours a day.
So it seems to me they weren't going to store a lot of vehicles there. They were gonna be there for a short period of time and then they'd be taken to some lot somewhere.
Go to auction, I think.
There's I don't know if it's a 30-day period, because they're under the guise of the Washington State Patrol,
Yeah.
is who regulates, or who licensed them.
Obviously, there's a lot more vehicles there than there used to be. Because there used to be nothing there.
Well, when they first started, they were waiting for their permit from Washington State Patrol and AAA to service this area. So they weren't, when they took the lead, when they leased the property, they were waiting for that final piece before they could bring vehicles in. And that's why they put the fence up so I think now they have that, and that's why I see their trucks running quite a bit, so.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm out quite often in the evening and when it's dark, and I look right out onto that, and there's not a lot of noise or things going on that would bring my attention to it.
Okay. Sounds like we have a general consensus. I will have that document ready to go at the next meeting then. And invite them to come too if they wanna talk.
Transportation list on that.
Okay, mayor update, wastewater treatment plant. Do you guys have any, I sent the CDBG, award letter out. You guys have any questions on that? Any, both the award letter for the grant funding and sent the, one-page summary from Andy as well. You guys have any questions on either one of those?
And our contractor is the one that said we can spend up to 10% in certain categories. Our contractor is the one that's gonna start doing all that stuff, right? We just have to write the checks to fund it.
I think that's what he's.
Steve Marsh and.
No, this'd be Andy Tom
This is Andy Tom, this is
for
wastewater.
Oh, that's
wastewater.
right. You're right. Yeah, sorry.
And part of that process is then, because of the CDBG funding, Andy told me that we're required to publish an RFQ, request for qualifications. Then obviously he's gonna respond to that, and I would hope, as well as he would, that we would then choose their firm to go forward with the process. Obviously, we don't have to. If there's two other people that respond to that, we have essentially two other applications, I guess, for employment. But
That'd be wonderful. Thank you if we ended up going a different direction.
Yeah, good luck getting any contractor to help us after that.
But anyway, so you guys will see that. That was the FYI. You'll see that go out you'll see it in the paper, and that's a formality for CDBG, as I understand it. Once that goes out, we'll probably be putting a resolution, I'm guessing, with all the grant funding and the money that's involved there to vote on. So yeah, look out for that. That'll be for the next meeting. Street project, Douglas and First, chip seal's been done. We are trying to get that swept. The county, neither one, I didn't think about it, nor did the county necessarily until a little bit late. They don't have a pickup sweeper, so our sweeper actually picks the material up, haul it off and dump it. All the ones that we use on county roads are side casts. It sweeps it, throws it off. Well, cars, cars, park, houses might not work real well, so the county, we're still trying to get it swept. There's excess float material on there. That's the only thing to be done. After that will be completely done, and we want to try to get it done either with our sweeper or...
Which doesn't work.
It does work. I think we just got to put a little effort into it.
Maybe
It's as far as I know, maybe there's
is the
something.
money to sweep already in a budget somewhere, like to be using a sweeper that's ours, that wasn't originally part of the project? Do we get some kind of money to cover the use of our sweeper, or is that money that we wouldn't spend on someone else's sweeper? Like, because this was grant money, do we get to reclaim a little bit of sweeper usage cost?
I don't know. That would be a question for TID. So if the county swept, obviously that grant would pay the rental fees and the labor. I don't know if we were to do that, how that
There
works.
was money left over in that project, correct?
Quite a bit of leftover money.
And did we give it back already? I know
No.
we had discussed it, well,
No, the final,
could we just rent a sweeper with some
Yeah.
of that money and clean it up with that?
Or have the county rent a sweeper, since
Right.
they bid it out and this
Sure.
is their project.
Yeah, if we've got that extra money there, we could just go ahead and use it for that.
yeah, but, so the problem there
It's
is
just a thought.
They already
finding a
bid.
sweeper.
Okay,
Can they rent
They
the
would have
sweeper?
done it today. They said, absolutely, we'll do, we got plenty of money, we'll
Okay.
have a guy go get it. However,
Can they rent the sweeper from the city, or is that a conflict?
Well, that's kind of what my
That's-
point was. Yeah.
Or do we just say, thanks, we're glad we got this money, and we'll just, the final thing is to sweep it, and
And I'm fine with that if it comes to it. I'm just saying.
I was just the
I'm gonna try and
timeline.
scrap for every dollar we can get, and it's
Sure.
maintenance on it somewhere. And if
Right.
the grant was supposed to pay it, I mean, you gotta do it at a fair rate, but I think for a fair rate, it's willing to say someone was gonna have to pay for gas and labor and
yeah.
a little bit of wear
If we
and
can
tear.
do that, if we can somehow get reimbursed, if we sweep it, I'll ask TIB, I'll ask the guy in charge there and see if that's a
Okay.
possibility. But the trouble with the county doing it was finding a sweeper. I was personally put on that job. Said find the sweeper, get it out here Thursday, we'll get it swept before Fall Fest.
Good luck.
Little easier said than done. As far as just finding a sweeper, so
We got like 15 kids that need community service hours. Hand them some brooms and
they're
send them
gonna need
over
I hope they need a lot of community service hours. West Adams Street, we had the pre-construction meeting. Originally, the start date was slated for 9/20. They are still working with BNSF for the permit. They have pushed their start date back. JR Massey is the company. They have pushed their start date back on the project until September 27th.
What's,
That's-
which is Monday.
there. Why is being,
why are they being, butter, BNSF? Are they?
are they dragging their feet or is it
No, I
just?
think it's just
Formalities?
Okay.
formalities and
Yeah.
time. They have to get a permit to work within
Okay.
so many feet of the rail line.
I see.
Okay.
And our project limits it was kept out so far for certain reasons so that they didn't have to, there's a different type of permit or some other reason, but they still have to work with
I see.
BNSF. But just a quick update, that's, as of now, that's the start date.
Which is Monday, so.
Committee updates, David, you sent out, both original and a draft of an updated ordinance 462. You wanna talk a bit about that, or does council have any questions, anything, any red flags or anything that they've seen?
Well, I sent it out, and hopefully, there's a couple maybe typos, but hence the draft. It was for you guys just to look at and mark up and see, make any changes, suggestions. Anything you want to add, delete. If I was waiting to hear comment, I've had a few. One here on the very first page, the hearing officer, as far as the selection of a hearing committee, is that the mayor, I originally put in here city council members, but I guess maybe, what do you think? Just the mayor choose a committee? Do you want everybody, all the embodiment of the council to be present in a hearing, or do you want to just leave it to a select few at the mayor's choice, or choice?
Previously it was, so I didn't have a junk ordinance committee, but or an issue, but we had a dog,
The dog.
Dangerous dog.
yeah, dangerous dog thing.
Potentially dangerous dog.
And so, at that time, Scott was the one that took the initial complaint, and then myself and the clerk were, and Scott, as not a committee member, but as a city employee that took it, were it. So we made that decision. The challenge that I saw before, and that I brought up as a council member, was, because Paul Gillen at one point volunteered to be everything.
Yeah.
The enforcement officer and he was like the judge, jury, and executioner.
I was just thinking that same.
And so, then the other thing, besides that aspect, I said, if you're running in an election year, and you're the bad guy, like, try not to have that person, try to have somebody that's not, I mean, just so for their own sake, like, if it was me, say, running, like, I'm running to be the mayor, and I'm current mayor and I'm running again, but I'm the one that's making those,
You're the
so
hatchet man.
then all of a sudden people will be like, well, that guy's, I mean, I'm not gonna vote for, I mean, so it's almost like political suicide in a town of 400 people, but, so, but there was no issue with the dog thing, in my opinion, to make that call, but I had the clerk there too, and we just discussed it. So again, though, as a whole council, I would, honest opinion, I don't think it's necessary. If you have a committee of two, it can only be two, plus the mayor. Or do you just leave it at the mayor's discretion to create an ad hoc committee if those come up?
The mayor and, yeah, maybe that would be good, but how about the mayor, two council members, and the code enforcement officer?
Seeing as how he's the one that's making the
Sure.
Yeah.
recommendations, it would be good to have him there.
My
You
other,
know, I'm open for suggestions on it, and
no, I think it was good, I liked it. My other question though, so two things. So the last one, when this was signed in 2008, they did it in April, and it went into effect like 50 days later, right? 52 days
yeah,
later.
June 1st.
June 1st, so it's April 8th to June 1st. But typically now, we don't use the code enforcement officer, we haven't, from November to March, because apparently nothing ever happens in the winter months. So, to do this, and then it'll be set up, but then at the same time, which we have money, we have what, $2,500, so, but we don't have a code enforcement officer right now, right? I think
From what I
submitted,
understand.
he submitted his resignation or but, so do we do it now? And I'd rather have, I mean, personally, I'd rather get it done, and then if we don't have anybody from November to April or March, at least it's in place, so when that person comes back in April 1st of
Yeah.
2022, it's hitting the ground running, we're not having, I won't be here then, but as a council, you don't have to then kick that can, at least there's in place, but it's gonna take at least 45 days to put it in place, I guess, and by that time, so if we don't make a decision tonight, at least in 2 weeks, I think we could for sure, but I like what you put in there, so I don't.
The whole premise is, I think, what I was hearing out of past code enforcement officers and the current, was that there was no reason for them to do anything, because there was no,
There weren't any teeth in the.
yeah, and
No
so
follow-up.
I think my hope was, by combining all, Wilbur's and kind of following theirs and the information, was that, and I know Mr. Davenport is not here, but his concern was about tickets and fining everybody. But I don't think it'll get to that issue that far if there is, people know there's consequences to this.
We need that as an assurance to
Yeah.
then help it be solved earlier in the process. If absolutely everything goes through, then there is that end fine.
Exactly, and there's a couple areas here, and I'll just throw it out. Wilbur states it gives them 15 days from the initial ticket to get rid of it or to do something. I kind of left that open-ended. I think in some circumstances, 15 days is not long enough. But then, do we want to give that to the code enforcement officer, or do we just want to set 30 days, or do we want to stick with 15 days? Because there's a hearing.
I think it should be
Yes.
set in the ordinance, in my
Right.
opinion. Whatever we choose, that
Those
the
are-
enforcement officer uses whatever is written.
I agree.
Don't leave it to the interpretation of that person, and not,
Discretion or whatever.
yeah, this is not about Jay, it's to that person, the position,
Correct.
because then there's,
Favoritism.
it could be opened up to that, or, perception of that, so the enforcement officer is just following what he or she was given.
Right.
That they're following a mandate or a direction that, here's what the council says, you're gonna follow these rules, and then there's less guesswork.
Cut dry, black and
I
white.
agree with that. So I guess my question is, what does the council think? 15 or 30 days?
I vote for 30, but I'm obviously not a voting member.
And the reason why is because the hearing, it states they have 15 days to respond. And I think it fits into it, 30 days to do their stuff.
I've
But
seen,
also-
I've seen things in the paper recently, Reardon and Odessa both have had people come to their council meetings that had one of these things, right?
Mhm.
That they had to come address the council
Yeah.
or not, I don't know if it was a hearing, but of dealing with it, because, which is,
Right, well,
it's-
that's-
I read it in the newspapers, how I know about it, but they just said the minutes, like, Johnny Smith came to talk about the citation he was, whatever you call the thing,
Mhm.
the notice that his property's really bad, and and they gave an extension. It's like the whole, even back when, before we had something official, it was all about just having that person come in and talk to us then and say, okay, I'm working on it, or screw you. But if they came in and talked, I mean, there was so much leeway,
Yeah.
because it was just a matter of, we want to work with you, but,
Communicate.
yeah, so
Just
I
so
don't, I don't have a problem with 30 days. I mean, I think, especially, so the other, I'm just gonna say the flip side to this, and Peter was here and Levi was here when it happened. The dog ordinance, which is somewhat similar, the problem that I've heard about this whole thing is if you don't enforce it, why do you have it?
Exactly.
So I think if we do this, and I'm just saying as the contrarian here, or whatever, in the sense of, for thought purposes or discussion, is it something that we think we can actually do? It's on the books now, right? I mean, the dog ordinance wasn't on the books then, what it is today, but, so, I mean, personally, I think it's a good thing to have this, and then we had somebody lined up before, who's since resigned, but I think maybe come back if we have this in place, to then have it going, but it's,
Like I said, the code enforcement officer go around and give a notice, and most people will go, oh boy, and they're gonna know in a statement, they're gonna get, okay, you have 30 days to get rid of this, or you complete your case, contact the clerk in 15, we'll deal with this, whatever needs to happen. Or if you just ignore it, this is what's gonna happen after 30 days. You're gonna get a infraction, civil infraction, and you have to go answer the court.
that's a question. For Jerry, do you currently get any complaints, either called in or come in, do people complain to you about?
Occasionally.
So that was so when the first code enforcement person this was when Dylan was the mayor. And Shelley Rush was the person that started it. The first thing they were doing, that code enforcement wasn't driving around looking for things. It was only responding to
Citizens.
citizen complaints that came into the city hall. So then they would go out and take a picture of it and say, and then they'd write a letter. That was the first iteration of this, that it was more reactionary, like the city wasn't, I mean, and that maybe would help Peter too, is the city wasn't going out looking to bust
Yeah.
somebody. Most of it was all like,
Reactive.
because we had a complaint form and it was the city, yeah. But the thought was too, was maybe while they were doing that, they might go talk to somebody,
Right.
but then somebody didn't want to be, they were scared they were going to be, they didn't want to be viewed as a bad guy, they're talking. So, I mean, there's been some different iterations, but that was the initial, was reacting to the complaints that were made. And I still think that would be the case. I mean, they can do more, but.
I'd still like to give the code enforcement officer, he or she, the ability to do that, to talk to them first, before, say, hey, you could get a notice, clean that up, or, kind of feel them out. Or just say, here's a notice, we'd like you to clean, I guess it'll work itself out a little bit, but the big thing is, it'll be something that have as much teeth as possible, and they'll, because now, I believe what's out there's just hey, you got a notice of violation, and they just take it and file it, or some comply, I don't know. But there's not a consequence to it, like, hey, you have to go to district court if you don't.
I think to answer your question, I guess, Justin, you asked that, yes, I think we can enforce it because of that. So there might be some leniency depending on what the council decides in between and time and stuff, but at some point, it's enforceable. I mean, it's.
No, I mean,
District
no, not enforceable, that we're actually like, because the dog ordinance, there's dogs sometimes run around, and then no one does it, but there's an ordinance that says, if there's a dog running around, you're gonna get in trouble, or we're gonna take your dog, and they say, previously, it was like, well, I see this dog, and I see it run right by the city maintenance guy, and couldn't do anything, so does it really matter?
You just ate lunch, you couldn't chase it, I don't know.
Whatever it is, so I mean, I'm not,
It's not far from.
again,
the
I
actual
agree
station.
with that, because like, if we're not gonna do anything, then why do it, but at the same time, I think it's important, and this is something that, again, started when Dylan was on the council, or was the mayor, and I was on the council, like, I was supportive of it back then too, so.
I can maybe
Numbers, how did those-
take
did you
Justin out of the
take
role
those
of
from
having to
Wilbur?
play devil's
Okay.
advocate, because
Thank you.
for the record, I read through it, I think it's a good upgrade to an ordinance that I don't know that I would have voted to be put in place in the first place, so I intend to abstain. Because I don't want to vote no, because I think it's a good upgrade. I agree with the principle that if it's on the books, it should be enforceable. I agree with the direction of making it enforceable. I think you put good work into it. I have no reason to vote no against it, but I feel like if I vote yes, I endorse the nature of the ordinance that I have a problem with. So along some ideological lines and then also enforceability, I'm not really convinced that it's something that we have the time and resources to really chase very well. So I don't want to stand in the way of it, but just want there to be no surprises of where I'm at with that.
Just vote no. Just pick a side. You've already just explained to him what your why, but I mean, I agree.
And I
but-
respect that, I mean, that's
Right.
fine.
Well, the other thing is then, so Peter's not here, Councilman Davenport, and I think he's talked about it, but if we did a straw poll, we know where we're just gonna fall at, right? Then it wouldn't matter, I mean, so which side are you on, Levi?
I am on the side of the amended and updated ordinance.
Okay, so then I think
come
Yeah.
at this from
right.
lots of experience, so I am hugely in favor of this.
So I think no matter what,
That
the
wasn't
worst it
pointing at
would,
you, I was pointing over the
Oh,
way.
yeah, sure.
the worst it would fall, it would vote, then it would be 3-2.
Yep.
Right.
It could be 4-1, but I bet it's gonna be, I mean, I would say 3-2, so, then do you wanna then plan on, and so that way Peter can be here? Or does it, I mean, I don't, you're the,
Yeah, I think we should, if there is any changes, David, that you wanna make or somebody else wants to make, punctuation, I mean, just get it cleaned up and ready to go. I think we
Keep
plan
on,
on,
we're voting on to adopt this, but attorney, legal's gonna have to give the final look at it.
sure, that's a good ordinance to have them, to have legal look at.
Even though it's existing and part of Wilbur's. I mean,
Yeah. No, I agree with that, that's,
so then do we have legal look at it before the council votes on it?
yeah, I would.
So then I would just work with the clerk and the mayor, David,
Yeah.
this next 2 weeks, bring it back.
and have, I don't know how long it's gonna take legal to look.
I don't,
They've always been able to get back to us within
Seems like
usually a
reasonable
few
time.
days, yeah.
We pay for it, but. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah,
Yeah, they've always been very prompt.
that was my only concern, is that we had to get the legal hoops through first.
I just got done talking to him actually about resolutions and stuff like that. He said where there's other, like RCWs, other things that are in ordinances and or resolutions are usually the ones that it's good to have looked at and tested to.
Yeah, and
So.
to further Stephen's valid point there, and I do respect that, is that, yeah, if we don't, it's not worth having, either we do something or just toss it, you know, and, because we're paying this guy or person position, and. Yeah.
The only, the ramification of this, and I don't know if they read our minutes or not, but the funding that we have for this was originally supposed to go to the sheriff's department.
Yep.
And the sheriff agreed or obliged or something, and so we pulled part of it out so we could fund this position.
Mhm.
And so I don't know in the end if, I don't think we're obligated, but that money that was essentially coming out of the sales tax increase, the 3% or 0.3%, do we need to then talk to the sheriff and then just pass that money back to him if we don't have this position?
Right.
So that's, I mean, so just,
Well, and this isn't the only ordinance that an enforcement officer could enforce with it, but your point is very valid. I think.
Yes.
Okay, let's have those discussions. Any of those other concerns next couple weeks. Have legal look at it, or if that's the route we want to go.
And pick a time, I think Fridays work good for Jerry, you said,
Saturdays, I thought.
Saturday.
Sunday, 6 a.m.
Okay, let's keep rolling. Cemetery mapping help. So I want to keep on this.
He said Fridays were better.
I talked to Flow Analytics. They have kiboshed the visit. They have had zero feedback on some of the stuff that we were supposed to do as a city to get this project rolling. I'm gonna forward an email that I got, I think yesterday, from them, and see if we can get the parks and cemetery guys on board this. See if we can make some time or make some kind of progress on this to make.
The last email I have is from August 3rd. They were going to be here yesterday and today.
Right.
And that they never showed up.
No, they kiboshed it. They don't have what they need. They said it's really
It's a logistical problem on their end?
no on our end. They need certain information to make their trip worthwhile and to spend the money, the hours and the credits that we have through them, with them, to come out here and do that, and we haven't provided them with that. So I want to see if we can make some kind of a plan or a schedule, whatever we can work out to try to get them the information and the stuff that they need to move forward with this project. So I will forward everybody, I mean, if everybody wants the email, but the Parks and Cemetery,
It was Levi and I, right?
yep, committee, just to see if we can get rolling on this, see what we can do to get it done.
They're mainly asking for kind of information like plots, who's who.
Yeah, the information from our small black book or big black book, and also our board. So I just want to, it's kind of an update on them, because like Justin said, they were supposed to be here, and I've spoken with them, gotten emails, I think it was yesterday. But anyways, I'll forward that along.
And as far as the mapping, weather's not a concern, do you have to go up there physically, or is it all book work?
No, it'll be physical work. I mean, I don't know exactly the process that they use to,
So you can't do it in the middle of winter is what I'm saying, the snow on the ground and all that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's,
So
okay.
just kind of an update on where we're at with that. Big point was to let you know, to let the council know that they will not be visiting physically. So,
We didn't tick them off or nothing, did we, or?
no, I
They
think that
will.
they're trying to look out for, I mean, we spend that money to be in the
I get
consortium,
you.
and they're saying, hey, I don't think it's a wise
I got you.
decision to come out at this point, so.
Okay.
Am I forgetting anything? That seems to happen quite often.
Ready to treat it.
There were no additions to the agenda, I missed that part.
There was just, I forgot to have the water meter presentation
Okay.
on there, so that was it,
Then
but that's
David-
happened.
And then the P&W boys up on the
Yeah,
street.
that was in there.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments, Jess?
On?
Public comment.
Anything,
period.
Yes,
Okay.
fire away.
I had our two public works people out this afternoon. I called Jerry when I got off a lawnmower this afternoon, called him, told him our sewer is backed up as it is like every 2 to 3 months, which is under my neighbor's house. So I asked Jerry, you know, normally I called the guy who brought the truck out. Would you like to do that, or do you want me to do that? And he called, and within 15 minutes, the boys were up there with their snake. And the only thing I showed them is where I know the manhole covers are, which are somewhat hidden. And in about 20 minutes, they had her fixed.
Is it the one by Crawford's?
Yeah,
That line, okay.
by the one by the garage there. They actually went down to the one on Crawford's side of the alley
Yeah.
first. Didn't go to the one in your yard.
Yeah.
And ran it up there, and that didn't do anything, and went up to the one right below my back door there. And down it went, so.
You say this frequently happens?
It happens about every 2.5 to 3 months.
Quarterly.
There's
So-
roots or
I
something
was gonna say,
underneath
like
Crawford's front porch.
Okay.
The sewer comes around the back of my place and then right to the corner of their garage. And then underneath their front porch. And then over to the one in Justin's front
Everything
yard.
in Harrington runs in a straight line.
It's kind of a
Yeah,
mess up there.
at any rate, the boys came out and got in there and had a
So it's a
good time.
problem, so it's been a problem since we lived here for 7 years, and
Is it trees?
all the above. It's partly because they're running through private property and
Yeah.
not down the street.
And
And
they're
so,
like 390
Physically, that's
degree
the
angles in
problem,
that
though?
line.
So at any rate, the boys said,
Or
you know, I
the
told them this
damaged
goes
lines.
on like every 3 months. Scotty
I
did
think
it here
both.
just before
I
he
think they're old
quit,
lines and damaged lines.
or
and,
before his time was done.
trees.
And I
Yeah.
documented it and I put it on the wall, so I'm gonna know this time. And Derek said, you know, I ought to just come back up here in 2 months, pull that cover off and run the snake down there so we don't have to wait till it backs up. And I thought, wow,
What a proactive idea.
what a novel, a proactive plan, instead of waiting
Well, he knew
till it
what to do
becomes
for
totally, well, once the thing fills full of water and it's not nice water,
Mm-hmm.
you can't see where to put the snake, so
Right.
you just gotta keep
I know
fumbling
that.
around till you can find the hole in the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is that going forward, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jess, if you're, who's responsible? Is it the city? Do we
It's,
need to-
it would be the
Absolutely.
city's, it's not
Right.
coming out of my house, it's my sewer going into the city.
Right.
And the only saving factor I have is I don't have any plumbing in the basement.
Yeah,
It's all on the first floor,
Right.
which is probably 6 to 8 feet above the thing that's filling up outside. So it
Mhm.
never backs up into my house. It just goes blurp, 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 blurp. You hear
So
all this.
clarification, it's our responsibility from the property line. Now, so
Yeah.
if things are happening out there, it's 100% our responsibility, but if it's something,
Except when the sewer line runs through your property without an easement, then it's the city's property. Problem.
no, if they have an easement, it's our problem, if not.
No. The city ran a sewer line through my property and there's no easement there.
So they
And-
essentially have a city line through his property without.
And I have a
his permission.
cesspool about 6 or 8 times a year
Yeah.
that is an EPA nightmare, like Department of Health nightmare.
Yeah, yep.
And that's not, if that was not there, it wouldn't be in my yard. If it
Yeah.
was out 10
So-
feet into the street, it would not make a cesspool in my front yard.
Unless I'm missing something, there's only one way out of this,
put a new line in.
and that is to get a grant. Because we're never gonna be able to fund such a thing on our own.
Right.
And so, I think for a topic for another time, is if we can ever find a way to scrimp and save to get a grant writer or someone to help us find this external money, because the best, unless I'm missing something, and I'm relatively new at this, so I'm not trying to make a definitive statement, but we can put Band-Aids on it, we can be proactive, we can do the best we can, but there's no fixing it without a grant, right?
Probably,
Yeah, that's
That
what
or
you
this came up before, is
Well,
you put a, which I think people would scream, but you do an LID, local
Yeah.
improvement district, that, for those affected property owners. Because one option has been to put it down the alley.
put it down the alley or down the street, and then the property owners have to connect up to the sewer.
The alley's a good idea. That's
The
what
city has to
Tony
pay
before.
for part of that line,
Well, that's one of our worst streets is, anyway, right?
We
I
need to tear
mean,
the street up, so
isn't that
that's a good reason to do
somewhere
it.
on the same track that
The
Second
6-year
Street should have been on? at
yeah,
one point?
it's on the same plan, it's on the
Yeah.
6-year plan.
It's current.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there for 20 years.
Alleys.
But I was just making a good point, the two boys are,
He was complimenting.
they
the
were
guys.
Johnny on the spot, and they came and they wouldn't allow me to help them. I said, just a minute, I'll grab my gloves and I'll shave. No, we got it, good, that's okay. So, it's not that they didn't appreciate it, they said, no, we'll do it, that's okay.
Good.
And I usually get on one end of the snake and Scott on the other, or Charlie, or whoever it was, and we get the job done.
That's good to hear, and thank you for the comment.
From a
So-
liability perspective, that's how it should be.
Move to adjourn.
We have a second.
Call
Yes.
the question.
Yes, we have a second. Motion by Levi, seconded by Steven. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of adjourning at
Aye.
9:23.
Aye.
Gotcha.
Motion passes 4-0. Thank you guys.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. for cutting you off.
No, you're good.